Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm going to start to call in everyone to your seats so we can get going here. Give a couple of minutes.
A couple more minutes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody who came today and who stayed for our talk. I really appreciate it. So my name is Nicole Emerson. You can call me Nikki. Nicole's my legal name. Don't know that lady. This is the multidisciplinary spaces that serve music and more. So for those who I haven't met, I co-founded the Lielow Music Festival that happens outside of Calgary. I also sit on the board for Frogfest, and I'm a co-owner for a decommissioned church outside of Calgary that is a multidisciplinary space that supports both visual arts, spoken art, music, and any kind of expression. So yeah, I'm here just to have a conversation with you and mediate this panel or moderate this panel. So I'd like to introduce Bethel from the Alcove Art Center from Calgary. And then we also have Shiva coming all the way, all the way from Michigan, Detroit. So welcome. Do you want to take a couple seconds to speak about your spaces and what brought you there, as well as your personal practice?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so my background started in community radio, actually. When I was in high school, I lived in a town that had a really strong college community radio station. And I got involved in the news department first, but then eventually, as I was learning the board to record the news stories, I started working in live in studio, and then started working in booking events in the city. We had a really strong house show community at the time, lots of underground DIY spaces. And this was in the Sacramento area, by the way, in California. And so eventually I moved up to Vancouver actually for 6 years, and I worked at the University of British Columbia, but continued to have roots or just connections in the music community in Vancouver as well. And so I was really involved with the space. I don't know if y'all have heard of it, but Redgate. And I remember having a studio there and it hitting that I would love to facilitate a space sort of like this. And that space involved art studios, music, rehearsal, jam rooms, performance hall, a gallery. And all of a sudden, purpose started making sense. And I was thinking, I've always been on the back end of things. I'm a sound engineer. I would really love to have a focused experience as an artist in a similar space where I'm not involved. And so I applied for an artist residency in Detroit in 2016. And upon arriving, it didn't go as planned necessarily in terms of just getting the artist experience. Within 1 week of being there, I was very hands-on with starting to help this organization and this very small nonprofit that owns a building, a 4,000 square foot building, find its place in the community. And so I didn't get necessarily a chance that I thought I would get to just focus on art, but immediately was starting to use all these random tools I'd sort of developed along the way to try to help the space. And I showed up November 2016, and by July 2017, I had to step up into the role of an interim president that ended up becoming actually permanent, because for some time I was just trying to pass on this organization to another organization with more capable hands. So it's now been 8 years that I've been managing this space. It also has a gallery, 9 studios, a theater, and we're entirely community programmed. So we have no paid staff. We're a sub $50,000 organization, annual budget. And all the money just goes into taking care of this building.
Wonderful.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Bethel. It's awesome that you came all the way down from Michigan, so welcome to Calgary. I co-founded and the current executive director of a space. It's actually nearby here. You're welcome to check it out. It's called Alcove Center for the Arts. Really, the idea came from being inspired by YMCA and the idea of recreational centers and having existing and seeing hundreds of them, and then realizing that arts felt like if you weren't an artist or if you didn't have the opportunity to explore art, there wasn't any
just casual way you could do it for recreation. So whether you're an artist or whether you don't think you have a creative bone in your body, we do believe like everyone does deserve a place to like foster their creativity. So that's really where the idea first sparked. And it sparked because me and my friend were bored and wanted to hang out somewhere. And we were like, we just want to go paint somewhere, but we don't want to like do a wine and paint sip night, or we don't want to pay like an arm and a leg for like a workshop because we don't care about being good at painting. We just want to paint. So that's really where the idea came from. And we are open 5 days a week. It's like free drop-ins, no memberships required, like open door policy. So you'll see people that are like skilled artists to like never have touched a oil pastel before, to like corporate executives that come through the space. So with that said, we also do lots of like different programming all throughout the week. So we have like jam sessions and workshops and open mics that happen once a month. And then lots of people can come in and like book the space. And we also help sponsor events and help people and artists bring their events to life. So we've been in that space in partnership with C-Space. If maybe some people have heard about the Meanwhile Lease pilot project, where they're helping organizations connect with commercial spaces that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have been able to access. And myself as an artist, I love doing spoken word. I grew up doing music, and I think that because I was granted the opportunity to do those things, whether it was like through school or private lessons or just because I had a passion for it, I realized not a lot of people are encouraged, especially as an adult, to explore that. So we're very much focused on like adults kind of like finding their creativity. Yeah.
Cool. How has your experience been with programming and influencing audiences that want to experience the multidisciplinary space within like art and music?
How do we say? Maybe say the question again.
Like how do you feel that the multidisciplinary space
Mhm.
within art and music influences audience, or how does it influence the audience to come in and what that experience is like?
Oh, yeah. So I think that when we do offer multidisciplinary spaces, of course, like we're opening up opportunities for, I think, broader audiences. Even when we first started, before Alcove existed, we started the show called Raw Voices. And initially it was going to be a spoken word show, but then I realized that like when I tried to bring people that didn't know about spoken word or poetry or and thought it was like kind of lame, it was hard to bring them in. So we were like, what if we did spoken word comedy and music? Because everyone likes music and everyone likes to laugh. And then they'll hear poetry too. So it was kind of just a way to like bring different people together. And I think it's just so cool because I think that sometimes we do feel like we're in silos. So having multidisciplinary spaces, there's just so much more opportunities for people to do maybe collaborations that they wouldn't have thought of. Like maybe a musician meets a visual artist and it's like, boom, now I have someone that can help me with my album art cover, things like that. So I think that we, as much as like it feels like they're different industries, I think that not only is music and art and different forms of art all intertwined, it's like tech is intertwined, like corporate Calgary is intertwined, like all these things are very intertwined. So as many things that we can do to kind of bring those things together, I think it can bridge gaps between a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting space to come into a community and not really know a lot of people and be like, okay, I have to, how am I going to do this? Is it me inviting in programming, or is the community going to, propose programming? Because what I learned is that when I was trying to book things, I was getting a lot of booking requests, touring acts and whatnot, but I wasn't able to actually draw in audiences a lot of the time because unless I invited another medium and created a more immersive or experiential experience that allowed for like more cross pollination. If I just had a touring act come in and I had some local acts, a lot of the times it felt like the local people who support the local acts had already seen them play locally enough times and they didn't know who the touring act was. But if you could combine it with another artist, that then it's like, oh, well, I've seen this act or this band play at the bar last week, but I haven't seen them with live visuals, or like I haven't been able to experience them with dancers, or I haven't been able to like experience this, environment elsewhere, basically. So I think it's always really made programming stronger when we've invited more disciplines. And then also, I think something that I've always felt is important about the space is keeping it as like a blank canvas for like people to create whatever environments they can't, like in a bar setting or another venue setting. And that's something that's really special. So whether it's like, okay, we have bands performing, but you can collage in the corner, and like even allowing for the audience to be creative as well, and or finding more ways for participation. So, whether it's like, very seldom we'll get a grant and it'll be like in partnership with somebody who wants to bring programming into the space, and we'll find as many ways that we can include community like participatory design. Like, for example, like if we have like an artist sort of pitch situation, it's not like whoever gets the top votes just gets the money. It's like we split it by percentage, and it makes it so the artists are inviting their communities, and then those communities are also intermingling. And I just love that there's like all these different interpretations and like different ownerships of the space within different communities in Detroit. But at the same time, when you have, again, multidisciplinary events, that's when they all come together. Like I'll have like a punk show one night, and all of that community will think like this is a place where punk shows happen. And then there'll be like a hip hop cipher the next day, and that community thinks that. But when we can like find more opportunities for them to intersect, that's when you really build community within the space.
So you're with the Spread Art,
Yes.
and it's described as an incubator space. So is it like more so an event spot, or do you have studio space? Do you have band space for people to do practices, or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so I was really inspired again from community radio and the idea of freeform.
Yeah.
And so it's a very freeform space. Yeah, we have 9 studios. Some of those are visual artists, some of them are musicians. We have a theater space that gets used for anything from like AA to, civic documentary workshops to, like I said, punk shows, hip hop, open mic, very similar to what Bethel was describing, actually, at Alcove. But I think something that again is I really hold on to and try to secure within the space is this feeling that you can create without the fear of failure. That's something we've heard from our community over and over again, that they have an idea of where they want to go, but like, where do you start? Where do you first begin to experiment and workshop ideas, basically, so that you can get to the gallery you want to, or you can get to the venue you want to, or you can apply for a grant and have a portfolio or whatnot. So I think these spaces are really important because, yeah, there's a lot where you can end up, but not where you can begin.
Yeah, I think that's important to speak on the fear of failure or the fear of starting. And I like to say that fear is an acronym for feeling excited and ready. Because like, what is fear really, other than the moment that's happening, and then what's the worst that's going to happen? Is that you die, and then it doesn't matter anyways. So everything's just a learning lesson. So I think we're taught that fear is a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing. Can you both speak on the challenges that you have with curating within both the different genres of visual art and music, and then the different aspects that come with that?
Yeah, I'd say like, I'd always feel like a cop-out answer is obviously funding. Like if I was to do a cop-out answer, it'd be that.
It's real though.
Yeah, but it's real.
Yeah.
But, I feel like it's kind of like you could always use more money, you could always pay artists, more artists, better rates, all that stuff. But I think that a challenge is being able to bring people with maybe different visions, different walks of life, and bringing something happen together and people feeling like, they were heard, that they're feeling valued in the process, like if you're doing a collaborative thing. And I think another challenge, like for us personally, it's an open door policy. Like we're open for like 30 hours a week, 5 days a week. So we have so many different people walk in. And like every time I talk to someone about like having a space downtown, they're like, aren't you scared of the safety aspect? I was like things happen in a blip. Like I'm not like, just because maybe a few incidents have happened, you can't discount that like 95% of the time, because of how we've like kind of structured the space, like people don't want to like mess it up. So people are pretty respectful. But I think a challenge is like, there's so many people that walk through the door, and there's so many people that are vulnerable, whether it's like they're vulnerable from age, they're vulnerable because of where they come from, and because maybe they're unhoused, they're vulnerable maybe because they have lower socioeconomic status. And it's kind of like this, like, how do you make sure there are like eyes in the space? How do you make sure that like if something happens in the space, people do speak up about it, because we've had issues, right? And I think that like as much as it's like, oh, come one, come all, because like that's really, it's just like super open door policy, and anyone can come in. I think the biggest challenge is like, I can't stop from bad things happening, but how do we foster a place where people feel like the staff and the volunteer will hear me out if something happened? There will be mediation, there will be those things. So I think that when we talk about community space, it's like there's so many different levels for it, and I think that ours is super open door policy, and we see so many different types of people walk in, that's what I hope, because I think that like innately lots of like most people are good people that just maybe are having a bad day, or maybe actually have had, you know, hurt people. So how do we foster a place where like those things can be talked about and actually like expressed and not like pushed aside? So I think that's the biggest challenge of like running a community art space, is like you don't know who's about to walk in the door and where they come from and what their intentions are, but you hope that they are just here to create art, and just hopefully the vibe is gonna help them leave their bullshit at the door. Yeah.
For us, because we're entirely community programmed and we have no operational funding, we have no programming budget. I think what's really sad and hard sometimes is like not being able to subsidize more events or programming. We've had to make a really accessible pay structure to help both activate people who want to use the space more. So, for example, we offer space at 10 hours at a time for $150, and you get a key and you get access to our shared calendar. And again, I'm not getting paid to let every event in, you know, and so it's like, how can I make it sustainable so the space is just available to people who want to use it? So it's like really hard, because even though it's like $15 an hour to basically rent 2,000 square feet, a theater, a gallery, and do whatever you want, it's still pay to use. And otherwise, it's like me volunteering and just being like, okay, like the space isn't going to have money for if there's a plumbing issue, or you know, just the other sort of utilities and things that we need to like run the space. So for at an hourly rate, if people don't pay for the 10 hours, it's $20 an hour, and it's still like pretty reasonable, you know, because they get to keep whatever they make in the space. So whatever tickets they sell at the door, if it surpasses, like they rent the space for 4 hours and it's $80 and they make like $600, like they get to keep all of that profit and distribute it as they want. Like I have no say in what you do with that money. But as long as I can buy toilet paper for your show, right? As long as I can make sure, like, if the heat goes out, I can do something about it. Or if the toilets overflow, I can do something about it. But that's where all of that money comes to. And so it's just hard, because I wish we could just subsidize more, offer more opportunities that aren't the community having to, you know, front for the expenses. But again, we try to keep it as low as possible, so that, again, it's just like the needs of the space are covered. And then another thing that inspired some of the rates we have, like for our studios, it ranges from $5 a day. We don't have people pay per day, but like the amounts are like $150 to $240. So $5 a day to $8 a day. And the way that we came up with that was Detroit's home to Motown. And Motown, Barry Gordy would be like, you know, do you want this recording or do you want a sandwich? If you want the sandwich, go eat the sandwich. But if you want the recording, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what is the price of the sandwich? Basically. So I was like $5 to $8. So depending on the space, it was like, okay, like, you know, if you want, if you need a studio space, I don't want you to go hungry, but at the same time, I want it to be comparable to a certain extent, so that you're not, you know, giving up your livelihood to be able to create. And so, yeah, we try to keep it at that, but it's still really hard because we used to have like live-in residencies too, and I had to cut that off because it was just too hard to facilitate and have conversations when like artists weren't able to pay for a while to be like, hey, like you need to find another place to live. That was a conversation. I was like, I'm not getting paid for this. Like, I don't want to be putting people out. So like, it was like, let's make these rooms all into studios, because if like someone's behind for 4 months, it might be easier to have a conversation and say like, is this a priority right now? Maybe you need to focus on the sandwich, not the studio. So these are just the difficult challenges for sure when you're just trying to provide for community, but you also have to make sure you're sustainable.
Yeah.
Balance.
Sustainability is
Yeah.
a big thing. Yeah.
Which can you two speak on experiences on what collaborations have been the most impactful for your space?
Oh. Most impactful.
Like for financially or getting the word out, or that just that had the biggest ripple effect? Anything that you can speak on?
I think for us, like just the first one that comes to my head is like jam sessions. I think it's because it happens every Thursday night.
For us too.
Yeah, it happens every Thursday. Thursdays is a great day to jam, y'all, you know? So jam sessions happen every Thursday, and I think that it was one of those things where like when we first opened this, like, you know, we went from having pop-ups to opening the space. It's like we're gonna just commit to hosting one event that is consistent, because everything else on our calendar changes every month. Like it's different workshops every month. We have an open mic, but that's once a month. So everything is always changing on the calendar. So we're like, let's have something that's consistent. And it used to just literally be like us and the host. Like, and now it's like without fail, at least like 70 to like 100 people that come by pretty much almost every week. And so
And is it an open jam?
yeah. So it's like we'll always have like 1 or 2 musicians or MCs that are like hosting and facilitating the flow of the jam. But you'll see, you know, people using the art space. So like, you know, you're talking about like people collaging in the corner and things like that. So it's like, I think you see what Alcove is meant to do in its full breadth. But I think what's really cool about it is that a few bands have like formed out of it, quite a few, like even just from the ones that I know, like Undecided is playing at your show. They all met at a jam session. Hip Hip Thursday met at a jam session, hence why they're called Hip Hip Thursday.
Cool.
And we have people that just come and they're like, I need a band for this weekend. I'm just gonna find people, and like I'll see them playing at like King Eddie and doing these things. So I think in the sense of like bands naturally meeting people, and you know, this being a music conference, I think that that has been the most impactful, because I always tell people like consistency is like the best thing that you could provide. It's just like, you know, maybe some days there's 0 people, maybe some days there's 50, maybe some days there's 20, right? But like just consistently showing up, something will come out of that, until the universe obviously is like, maybe you should, like you will know in your gut feeling if you should take a pause or, you know, if you should step back. But without fail, I think consistency is great.
Being
And
reliable to the outer community.
exactly, just being reliable. So I'd say like that's one of, if I was to especially speak on this context, I think that was one of our cool shows that happened. Yeah.
Wonderful.
You do jam sessions on Thursdays?
Yeah, so we have like a really amazing jazz community that uses the space. Detroit has a really incredible young jazz scene right now, and they will be there till 5 a.m. Like, because I can see when people check in and out, and I'm just like amazed how late they're there, just playing standards, improvising or whatnot. And yeah, so that's been incredible because I trust, I call them the jazz boys. There's a lot of jazz boys. It's like that's how they're listed in the alarm too. So it's like jazz boys checked out. But yeah, no, it's incredible, especially because we're not totally above the board as a venue. We're in like this gray area, and I always imagine like the cops coming in at 4 a.m. and seeing a bunch of guys like playing jazz and being like, what are you gonna do about it? Like
That's technically not illegal. You can go. That's
yeah, right.
As long as you don't have neighbors that are annoyed about the noise.
You're the only building on the block.
Oh, so you're good.
Yeah,
So you're in like an industrial area?
no, it's just Detroit.
Fair enough.
So it's not, that doesn't happen everywhere. We have some, you know, density, but it's, yeah, we have We're a city built for 2 million with a population of like 500,000. So there's a lot of yeah, blocks where maybe there's no building or some. One of the collaborations that really helped us, I feel like a year or so ago, was that we were trying to apply for programming grants, but again, we're a sub $50,000 organization, and we've kept it that way because of sustainability, actually, because once we break $50,000, our reporting to the IRS requires having an accountant and having a lot, just like a lot more reporting requirements. That right now, it's like we'd have to make so much more to be able to hire somebody to even do that audit and do all that. So we try to keep it there because, again, if we want to make more than 50 grand, we have to make a lot more and consistently a lot more to be able to sustain that. So every now and then it's like we just want to apply for some programming funding, but because we're a small budgeted organization in the States, it's really hard if you're sub $50,000 to get grants in general, because they want to see a lot of that reporting in the first place, right? Your 990 and so on. So I've really appreciated when other community organizations have stepped up to be our fiscal sponsor for a certain grant. And so they're like, we have to do our audit anyway. Like, we're already above that threshold. So we'll sign on. We have a relationship with this funder. They trust us. And sometimes it's not even in line with the programming we're applying for. Like, we did this series where it was like 2 showcases. Again, community voted on people who then went on to get a recording opportunity to record an EP at a professional studio, and then it ended up in a festival. But along the way, everybody got paid, and it was a very unique opportunity because we never have that privilege to pay our sound person and this and that and whatnot, and so we partnered with an organization called Arts and Scraps that reuses materials and whatnot, is like a scrap store basically for creatives. But they had, again, that relationship and the financial security so that they could accept the funding and then disperse it to us as we executed the programming. And it was really powerful because it built trust for us with other funders and even expanded our community to people who again did not necessarily see the connection between a recording and festival and showcase series to a scrap store, but it showed the power of community and how, again, cross-pollination can really help.
And how did you find that relationship, or how did it come to fruition?
It's actually interesting. So I met a lot of organizations in Detroit. There's not so many, but there's a good amount. But initially, when I was trying to transfer the building to another organization.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was I had the choice of redeveloping a board and being okay, we're gonna keep this together, or what was gonna happen was that the building would have to get liquidated to the state of Michigan, and who knows what they would do with it, turn it into a brewery, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Or let it just sit empty.
Or let it sit empty. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was that, or as a nonprofit, when you want to dissolve, you have to find another nonprofit to transfer your assets to. So it was interesting. I met so many organizations just being do you want a building? Do you want a building? And all of them said no, to the point where I got, because this building's from 1889. It's old. And so that's why I'm saying for it's been 8 years and all the money has to go into the building.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically all of these organizations with way more robust budgets were no, which is still shocks me because I'm what? We're running with nothing, and you have so much more money, but don't want an actual building. And yeah, there are times where they've told us have you thought about selling your building and just renting somewhere else so that you don't have to worry about the facilities? And for me, it was so much about the building because I'd lived in other places that had been gentrified and artists that didn't own their spaces and had to move. And so it was as long as this organization owns this building, I want to make sure that either it goes to another organization that is a cultural entity of sorts, or we're gonna figure it out. So that's how I met Arts and Scraps, and then we at some point I was hey, will you be our fiscal sponsor for?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
That's
awesome. Yeah.
When I think about venues and studio spaces and just that aspect of the artistic culture, I like to think that venues are very much in the middle of the beat and the pulse of what's happening within our community. So I'm curious, what's some of the primary things you hear from your community that they're asking for that we don't currently have or they're not seeing?
Spaces for raves.
Yeah. We were just talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. More rave spaces.
Yeah, just like super like DIY spaces that are just like blank canvas. That was just the first thing that came to
Yeah,
mind because we were
enough.
talking about it too. But I'll let you.
No, that's it. Like we surveyed, and it was like, what artists in our community were like, what do you need more than anything to create? And they just said space.
Mm-hmm.
They just needed space to actually do it, to play music loudly, to move and dance, to teach classes, whatnot. Like it's just so. Yeah, it's its own medium, honestly. Space, I think. So
Yeah, and space where it feels like you're being supported as an artist and like your artistry comes first. And I also think like we were also talking about that outside, but we used to have a rehearsal space downstairs, and just because of like logistics and stuff of us trying to like figure out a better way to operate it, we kind of closed it down. But when we were opening it up in collaboration with a few musicians, we realized there weren't actually a lot of like rehearsal spaces for musicians with like basic backline and speakers that was like in downtown that was like, you know, around $30 an hour, $25 an hour, just like on that lower end. It seemed like, and there wasn't a lot of like entry level, I guess rehearsal spaces. I'm sure that a lot of people rehearse in people's apartments or homes or basements and things like that. So there isn't a lot of like central meeting points where like, you know, different people can come at an equal point in Calgary, equal air quotes, I guess, downtown, and like rehearse. So I think there is a lack of rehearsal spaces. And I think there's just like room for more space. I think there's this idea of like, oh, if another art space opens up, that it's like competition, but it's not, because if there's like, it's just like if there's like multiple coffee shops on the street, that's just going to bring more people and more options. And as much as, you know, capitalism has its downfalls, I think that there is that idea of like kind of like competition and bring people together, because now it's like, oh, maybe they can go to like 3 different art spaces, so now everyone's getting checked out, right? Versus just like that one that you have to go to on that block. So I think that if anyone wants to start space, there is opportunity to do those things, and there are ways to do that. So
Yeah, with speaking on capitalism, we've got like
speaking on capitalism,
we've got the corporate ladder that people talk about, climbing over each other to get higher. I like to talk about the corporate trampoline. So it's like we don't just need to be on a ladder and one person climbs over each other to get higher. We're all on a trampoline together. And if you want to get high, I'll double bounce you. You can reach your goals. When it's my turn, double bounce me. We're all bouncing each other.
Oh, I love that.
I think it's important to think about, because even what you said with like one coffee shop versus multiple, it's like the more coffee there is, the more we're going to drink it.
Yeah.
And with music and visual art, paintings have frames, sculptures have plinths, music has venues. We need more venues. We need more plinths for the music, and that's like a big part of what I do, and I feel like what you all do is creating space, creating the framework, creating the plans for more music to happen. So it's pretty important. So this is our final question, then we'll open it up to everyone else to ask questions. But if someone here or someone watching this wanted to start a venue or space like yours, where would you suggest they start?
I think it's important to really, in like professional terms, they call it like a stakeholder analysis, right? Of like really seeing what are the needs, who's at play, what is the demographic of your city, and how can you even like be representative of that too? Like how can you facilitate a space that is representative of the community you are in? Because oftentimes I feel like I'll see spaces open and it's because somebody was really popular, has a bunch of friends and has a crew and a collective, and they're like, they do something, the fire's there, and then it
kind of
dies, right? But when you actually have a purpose in a community, like it will continue. You know, it's very different than something like a fad or a trend or I don't know, just. But those spaces are also important. Like I think they bring an energy to the community that also does help like longer lasting spaces, but it's really finding your purpose, finding your community, and making sure that there's a need for that in a way that, again, it's not about like, oh, this already exists, so I can't do that, but more so that like, okay, what are the gaps in that space that maybe I can fill?
Mhm. I totally echo everything you're saying there. And just to add to that, I would say that if you want to start a space, start with hosting whatever you want to host and just compromise with an existing space and see how consistent you can be. Because I think that I do hear a lot of the conversation around having a space. And then, you keep talking about the toilet paper and the washrooms. And I think people
Mm-hmm.
glamorize having a space, but then forget like who's cleaning that space?
Yes.
Who is going to deal with it when there's a flooding? Who is going to have someone open and close that door? So I think that like, and this is also speaking from us personally, right? We started off just like hosting events monthly at dive bars. And it's like, how consistently can we do this? Can we show up every month and host this show? And then we went and did pop-ups at like, and then started garnering relationships and started doing it in commercial spaces for like a weekend. It's like, okay, can we do this? And it's kind of like that nice like dopamine hits, like, okay, I can accomplish that. Maybe I could do it for a week and then try that. And so I think that, I feel like the space that we're even in now, we're retrofitting a shoe store. Like it is not a purpose-built art space. And I hope and dream one day that we will have a paint sink and a kitchen with a microwave and sink, right? Like, but I think that using the tools and the opportunities that you have and starting somewhere, like whether it's hosting something that you want to do at an existing bar and then taking that money and saving it up and then using it for the next thing and growing it, like let things grow and kind of meet yourself where you're at, right? Because like it's going to be so overwhelming if you're like, even if you find funding, like let's just say you apply for a grant, you apply for funding, get the money, you're like, perfect, I have rent money, you get a space. It's like, how are you going to market it? Is it just going to be you and your friends? It's like, you also don't want to overwhelm yourself. So I think start where it feels manageable, where your life is, if you have a job, if you have all these things, like, you don't want to quit your job and just do something yet, right? So it's like, start somewhere and just like start as soon as you can, right? Like, even if
Great
it's like
advice.
once a year, like start somewhere. And there's so many venues that are so happy to collaborate and hear your idea. And this is even speaking for myself, right? Like if someone came up to me and it's like, one day I want to open up a space just like Alcove, but I want to start somewhere, it's like, do you want to start trying something here once a month? You know what I mean? Like I have had those conversations with people. So it's like there are lots of venues, like music venues, bars, restaurants that are also looking for audiences. Like you'd be surprised, like if you approach people, they're probably waiting. We were talking about this earlier too. They don't have the capacity to go out and look for musicians or cool events. But if you approach them, you'd be surprised sometimes the reception that you would get. So yeah.
That's great advice. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?